Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my Week 6 Top 25 predictions. Another week of football where we just get thrown a bunch of great matchups. These are my 3 matchups of the week. But yeah, a like and subscribe would help. A comment always helps. And let's get straight into this. So the first matchup, didn't even have to change the background, is Oklahoma versus Texas in the Red River rivalry. And honestly, I don't think people realize how important of a matchup this is. The way I see this matchup is if Oklahoma wins this game, they have secured their spot, or they have really raised the potential of making it to the college football playoff this year. If Texas wins this, Oklahoma's chance falls so low. They're probably not going to make it because these two teams are most likely going to be the teams playing each other in the Big 12 championship. The only team that I could potentially see taking one of these teams' spots, most likely Oklahoma's, would be West Virginia, because West Virginia doesn't have to play Texas. They're 4-1, and they just have to play Oklahoma. If they could pull that out of their ass, which I doubt they will, that would be how they take it. They'd have to go pretty much undefeated and win against Oklahoma from this point on. It's a good thing the Penn State loss for them was non-conference. But, I don't think people realize how important this Red River rivalry is, because these two teams could very well both finish a one-loss team, or Texas could go undefeated, Oklahoma goes 2-loss. I mean, maybe some world Oklahoma goes undefeated and Texas goes 2-loss, but these two teams could both very well be college football playoff contenders by the end of the year. This is a matchup. This is both teams' most likely loss. I'm going to favor Texas because I said in my last video, I don't remember at one point I said it, the teams that typically win championships are the teams that kind of fall in the balance meter. There's offensive, balanced, and defensive, and majority of schools will heavily lean on one side. And whichever team can make it the closest to balanced wins the national championship. For me right now, Texas is definitely one of those teams that is the closest, if not the closest, to the middle, because they've got Quinn Ewers in a solid offense that has put up 30 points every single game so far this year. And on that resume, they've played at Alabama. So their offense isn't just filled with cakewalks, it's actually proven itself. As well as their defense has just made teams' life miserable. Oklahoma, on the other hand, they tend to kill their opponents while allowing points. They tend to just, it's kind of like I would say, Texas is like a snake that just, strangles their opponent. They wrap around them and they just strangle it on both ends of the ball. Oklahoma just likes to, I don't really know what the analogy for Oklahoma would be. Maybe just, swing a bat and land more hits than the opponent. Oklahoma feels like they definitely lean way further on the offensive side of things. And that doesn't necessarily look good because they went at a bad Cincinnati team and they only put up 20 points. So this Oklahoma team would have way more potential to get exposed in this game. But I think since it's a rivalry, Dylan Gabriel's a great quarterback, as well as Quinn Ewers. I think these teams will have a great matchup. I could be making this way lower scoring than it actually may be. This could end up being like a 45-52 type of deal. But yeah, this is the prediction. I say it's going to be closer than Texas. Texas could probably beat this team up pretty good, but since it's a rivalry, there will be multiple emotions for multiple teams, and hopefully it will lead to a fantastic matchup. Very excited for this one. Maryland at Ohio State. Can we just talk real quick about how they ranked Louisville over Maryland? I would just like to talk about Maryland's resume so far, and then we'll compare it to Louisville's. So Maryland has won 5 games. They're 5-0. They kicked the shit out of Towson. They kicked the shit out of Charlotte. They kicked the shit out of Virginia. They kicked the shit out of Michigan State at Michigan State. And they kicked the shit out of Indiana. You're like, well, those are a bunch of nobodies, right? Oh, well, this is where you're about to be wrong. Because actually, these teams have two of the same matchups on it. Ha ha ha. So, Louisville in the opener wins 39-34 at Georgia Tech. And Georgia Tech just got killed by Bowling Green on their home field. Louisville then shuts out Murray State 56-0, but it's a peewee. Then they travel at Indiana and win 21-14. Then they host Boston College. They win by 28, 56-28. And then they travel to NC State in a game NC State was up 10-0 at halftime, and they win 13-10. So you tell me which team you think should be ranked, Maryland or Louisville. I say Maryland 1,000% because not only has Maryland's wins looked more impressive, they have literally played the same matchup, and Maryland was more impressive on every little corridor there was. Maryland played at Indiana. Or no, they hosted Indiana, and they won 17-44. Louisville went at Indiana and won 21-14. Sorry, but not sorry. Maryland should have been ranked instead of this team. That's just a little rant I had to say. It's not necessarily that important because Maryland comes in at a good 26 spot, but Maryland won't get to see number 25. So I kind of feel like it's a little disappointing. Like Maryland won't be able to see the rankings probably, even though they kind of deserve it. They have to go play at Ohio State. I think Ohio State, this one could be a bit closer than we like it to be. The problem with Maryland for me in this one is going to be, I just think Ohio State's defense is going to be too strong. I have what's his name? I don't want to say Tua because it's not his name. Okay, it just won't show me what his real name is. I don't know what his real fucking name is. So Tua Tagovailoa's brother, is playing for Maryland. He's 111 for 169, 1,464 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions, whereas Kyle McCord is 74 for 113, 1,055 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Honestly, Ohio State's offense does not look as good as Maryland's offense. Now, I know Ohio State has played Notre Dame on their schedule, and that was a very heavy defensive matchup. Of course, the stats are going to be a little bit different there. So they don't really have that good of an offense, but I don't know if Maryland has that good of a defense to hold Ohio State to as little points that Notre Dame allowed, right? And it's at Ohio State, one of the biggest stadiums in college football. I think the third biggest stadium, holds the most people, I believe. I don't think there's any room for success here for Maryland. I think Ohio State's score also consists of a defensive touchdown. Give me Ohio State. I'd love to favor Maryland in this one. I really, really, really hope they win this one. Oh, it would make my day. It would make me so happy, but I don't think it will happen. LSU at Missouri. The fairy tale dream is over for Missouri, in my opinion. LSU about to drop off of the rankings. They're 3-2. Who would have seen this coming, guys? Who would have seen this? I had seen so many people say LSU goes undefeated SEC championship, college football playoffs. So many people say it. They are already a 2-loss team 5 weeks into football. Now, I know they've played tough teams, but still, clearly they're just not competitive enough. But they get to go play yet another ranked opponent. They have to go play at undefeated Missouri. The line is 6.5 for LSU, and I don't disagree. Main reasoning being the Florida State game, they got absolutely walloped. They got killed. I think Florida State is just a much better team than LSU. Doesn't mean LSU's bad. LSU could probably still be a good, solid number 13 team. I just think Florida State should be number 3, not number 5. So, and Missouri, the problem with Missouri for me is they're ranked because, yes, they're 5-0, but they also beat Kansas State, who was number 15 at the time. So it's like Missouri's boosted to me up into the rankings by a bad Kansas State team or an overrated Kansas State team. I don't think they're necessarily bad. I just don't think they should have been ranked that high. And LSU struggles on the defense. Many people say secondary. Many people say the secondary sucks ass. So the thing is I could see more of an offensive shootout, but ultimately LSU has the talent. They out-talent Missouri in every shape or form. Don't get me wrong. This will be at Missouri. It's going to be a big, loud game. Biggest game for Missouri in a very long time. Best believe there's going to be a lot of emotions going into this. But I think LSU's just a stronger team, as well as Jaden Daniels, man. He just runs, bro. He is such a good runner. He runs, he can get absolutely blasted, and he gets right back up. He's like the skinniest tank I've ever seen. It's ridiculous. I can't wrap my head around it. I think LSU's offense is just too strong. It definitely showed against Ole Miss. Even though they lost, they still put down 49 points. I think LSU finally gets a break. They finally catch a break. Washington State at UCLA. You want to know what I find insane? Washington State is number 13 in the country right now, which I absolutely love to see. It is making my day right now. Washington State is number 13 in the country with a win against a very solid Oregon State team in a game that they led 35-14 throughout the game. And they go play at UCLA, a team that could only put up 7 points against Utah. And UCLA is favored by 3.5. I definitely think these are two very good offensive teams going at it. I don't want to dog on Washington State's defense because they played very well against Oregon State's offense. Now, the thing is it's Oregon State's offense, which is Oregon State's weak spot, in my opinion. The running game was what Washington State struggled with, but they pretty much locked up DJ, holding him 17 for 30 for 198 yards and a touchdown and an interception. So yeah, the pass defense for Washington State looked to be the more solid part. That could also be because DJ's just not the best quarterback, but the rush defense was where they struggled. The pass defense is where UCLA is solid. The pass offense is where UCLA's solid. And quite frankly, Washington State's offense, I didn't even get to talk about their offense yet. Cameron Ward needs to be in the Heisman race. And the receivers were playing fantastic in that Oregon State game. I don't think there's any hope for UCLA in this one. I could be wrong. I just think it's going to be an obliteration. Don't get me wrong. I think UCLA will put up some points, maybe keep it close throughout the first half, like a 21-35 high-scoring first half. But Washington State, they are so underrated. I know they're number 13, but they're so underrated. If they lose this game, that would suck. I would so much rather have them lose a ranked game because, dude, this team is so underrated. I love it. Virginia Tech at FSU. If you watched my prediction video on the ACC, I don't know if I posted that one or not. Whatever. I just recorded like certain conference prediction videos, and I never got around to posting certain ones, so I don't know if I ever posted this one. But I had Virginia Tech beating FSU. Just don't even ask. It was just like a random pick, which now looks like literally even more impossible than it was saying it at the time. Give me FSU by a lot. FSU, they look to be a college football playoff contending team. They're playing their next toughest competition is hosting Duke, which is on the 21st of October. And who knows if Duke's quarterback will even be back. If Duke's quarterback isn't back, then it's just Duke's not going to win that game. I actually really like Duke. I think they're a solid team. Problem is, I don't know if Duke even had their starting quarterback. I think traveling into FSU is too difficult to win. Yeah, no. Then Florida State has to host Miami, which even though they're hosting them, it is kind of the same state. There's going to be a bunch of Miami fans there. It will be a tough game. That'll be the strongest competition there. So FSU will annihilate this Virginia Tech team. Alabama A&M. Oh boy. Oh boy. I was resisting the urge to put this on one of my games of the week, but y'all, when has A&M not upset this team? Like when it's at A&M, when have they not upset this team? Let's be real. And come on, Jalen Milroe, man, he just doesn't look like the best QB ever. A&M has one loss right now that's keeping them out of the rankings, and it is to a very solid Miami team, a very highly respected Miami team by multiple people, and Miami had the home field advantage. So from that point on, though, A&M killed UL Monroe, which we expected. They beat Auburn, who just played Georgia to a 7-point game, and they beat Arkansas on the road in a game they were destroying. I mean, they won 34-22. It was 34-16 with 4 minutes left in the game. And it was a 48-yard pass from KJ Jefferson that allowed it to happen. Like, KJ Jefferson was getting all this Heisman talk, and he played like shit against A&M because I think A&M is, quite frankly, just a good team. I know I shout on this team for being ranked in the preseason polls, but that was just because they were ranked number 6 2022 season, and they fucking lost to Appalachian State, so that's why I was pissed off. But this team looks very solid. Alabama's favored by 2.5. I don't think Alabama wins it. Give me A&M. Bama has yet to do any high scoring against good teams. They've put up 24 points against Bama, and they put up 24 points against Ole Miss. They put up the same amount of points every game. I'm not going to count the USF game because Nick Saban was smart for what he did. Nick Saban was very smart because he was playing the backups and showed how shit they were compared to Jalen Milroe, and he knew his defense was going to be able to lock up USF to no points at all. So he just played his backups who suck dick on offense, and they take the dub. It tanked him in the polls, but he don't fucking care. He's a smart genius. They've beat up their little opponents. You could say Mississippi State's a little opponent because they'll finish very close to last in the SEC. But in their good games, they've both times put up 24 points. One of their games was they were able to lock up a team defensively. The other one, they just weren't able to. So I think they're going to stick in that same range of 20 points. And Texas A&M's defense will be able to lock them up, but their offense will be able to outscore the Bama defense. Give me the A&M upset. Syracuse at UNC. To me right now, North Carolina and Clemson look like two extremely similar teams. Very good defenses, very, very good defenses. But very inconsistent offenses. The difference between the two teams is that UNC hasn't lost and Clemson has. So this will kind of just be a repeat of the in my opinion, of the Clemson-Syracuse game, except Syracuse might get an extra point or something might get an extra field goal or something. But Drake May, he just sometimes he's good, but then he throws a bad pick or something like that. But this UNC team, even though it was South Carolina, they locked South Carolina the fuck up. And they played of course, everybody wants to dog on them. It's their first intention to dog on North Carolina for playing like shit against Appalachian State. But they did the same thing, I think, last year in a very, very high-scoring close match. And Appalachian State upset, what's their face? A&M. Actually, that might have been in 2021 when North Carolina did it. I don't remember, but last time North Carolina App State met, very, very close matchup. Appalachian State goes into these stadiums and almost hands them an upset. It's just what they do. Don't dog on North Carolina for that. North Carolina since then has been utterly dominant, killing their opponents. And, yeah, they're just a really good team. Drake May's just got to be not inconsistent. He's just got to be good. I just realized the background that I chose for North Carolina is a cool stadium picture, but there's a injured motherfucker right here. So everybody's just paused on the field while this dude's injured or something. I didn't even realize that. It's kind of funny. Kentucky at Georgia. Y'all, number one's time is up. Number one's time is up. Give me Kentucky in a very close upset. The only thing keeping Georgia in this game will be the crowd. That will be it. I think Kentucky will get off to like a good 17-7 start, and then from the second half and beyond, it will be a close, lower scoring game with Kentucky walking it off. Devin Leary doesn't necessarily need to be a presence in this game because of Kentucky's running back. He's so good. He's so good. Kentucky just killed Florida 14-33. Thank God. Florida did not deserve to be ranked. Kentucky goes 5-0. Love to see it. Love to see it. And Devin Leary was 9 for 19. Devin Leary being the quarterback of Kentucky, in case people didn't know that. Devin Leary went 9 for 19, 69 yards, and a touchdown. I mean, in just 9 completions, 69 yards and touchdown isn't bad, but he also didn't complete 10 of those passes. But did he need to? They didn't need to weaponize this guy like that because the running back carried 26 times for 280 yards and 3 touchdowns. Ray Davis was a dog. He was an absolute dog. As well as just the defense in general was able to hold Florida to 14 points. That's it. And Kentucky just looks like a really solid team. Where does Georgia's weakness lie? In the rush defense, because guess what Auburn basically made their points off of? Not through the air. The Auburn quarterback through the air was 10 for 19, 82 yards and an interception. It was the ground game. The quarterback was the leading rusher with 12 carries and 92 yards. Auburn rushed for 219 yards. This is brewing ground for a bad game for Georgia. I think it's crazy that they're favored by 14.5, and it could just be my bias speaking because I don't think Georgia's the number one team. But dude, the only reason this game would even be close is because it's at Georgia, and it's just such a difficult environment to play in right now. Kentucky literally weaponizes in the spot Georgia struggles. If I'm looking at it right, Georgia's rush defense was the reason the Auburn game was so close, right? Now, you look at the South Carolina game, right, versus Georgia, Spencer Rattler was 22 for 42, 256 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. He was also their leading rusher with 8 carries and 35 yards. South Carolina's total yards were 256 yards or 256 passing yards and 53 rushing yards, right? Well, that's because South Carolina doesn't have a rush offense. Spencer Rattler was 35 of their, 53 rushing yards. They don't have a rush offense, and yet they were still able to put up 14 points. So I just think Kentucky weaponizes in the area Georgia is the weakest. I think that's simply what it is. And to be honest, Georgia doesn't have the best offense ever. South Carolina's defense is nothing special. We've seen that with North Carolina. North Carolina walked all over them. And their offense only put up 27 points against Auburn, which actually is a bit more impressive in my eyes because, if anything, Auburn is about their defense. But that also could be because it's at Auburn, right? I just think Kentucky weaponizes in the area that Georgia is the weakest. That's why I'm pulling the upset here. Michigan and Minnesota, not even going to describe it. Minnesota is an awful team. They will kill this team. Sitting in that 30-point range like they normally do, with the exception of last week against Nebraska, they'll sit in that same range and just walk over their opponent. Notre Dame at Louisville shouldn't even be a top 25 matchup. Maryland should be ranked instead. Notre Dame has struggled enough with their ranked opponents. Like I described earlier about Louisville's schedule, they struggle with bad teams. Notre Dame will have no issue. This will even just be like a Louisville touchdown with little time left and a 2-point conversion to try and bring it back. Notre Dame could score way more points. Notre Dame will catch a break against a ranked opponent. I find it crazy that they ranked Louisville over Maryland. Simply being said here, I mean, if you just look at the resumes of these teams, there's no way Louisville even fights in this game. It's not there. Arkansas at Ole Miss. This could be a very high scoring game. we saw last week, Ole Miss was in a massive shootout with LSU. Ole Miss tends to lie in a very high-scoring range, with the exception being the Bama game because they were just being stopped the whole time by Bama's defense. They dropped 37 at Tulane. They dropped 48 against Georgia Tech, then 10 against Bama because Bama's defense locked them up, and then 55 against LSU. So this could be a very high-scoring game, just like Arkansas. Arkansas put down 56 points against their random opponent, then only 28 against Kent State. That was just a bad game. It looks like there. I don't really think Arkansas is the best team ever. But then they lose 38-31 to BYU. Then they lose 31-34 against LSU. Kind of forgot that game happened. And then they lose 34-22. This was kind of like Ole Miss's this is like Ole Miss's offense failing against Bama's defense. Arkansas's offense failed against A&M's defense. So these two teams could just battle it out with the offenses. They could just duke it out, have a high-scoring game. Could be closer, could be further apart. I think Ole Miss's offense is definitely way stronger than Arkansas's. Jackson Dart is a very good quarterback, very underrated quarterback. Their running back is very good. They have a solid wide receiver. I forget what the Ole Miss's wide receiver, I forget who he is, but they were saying like Heisman potential and stuff. As well as they've also got Spencer Sanders on the bench, who is a pretty solid QB himself. He brought Oklahoma State to one of their best years ever and fell half a yard short of college football playoffs. So he's a very good quarterback that sits on the bench. This could be a high-scoring game. It could even be higher scoring than I'm putting it. Georgia Tech at Miami. Georgia Tech just got kicked. They just got their ass kicked by Bowling Green at Georgia Tech. Give me Miami by plenty. This is even being nice to Georgia Tech. Fresno State at Wyoming. Fresno State's ranked in the top 25 because their most impressive win is shutting out ASU at ASU. As it is a pretty impressive win. Nonetheless, they went into Purdue and won 39-35. They won in double overtime against Eastern Washington. Don't know what happened there. Then they shut out ASU at ASU. Pretty impressive. They killed Kent State 53-10. They got ranked, and then they beat up Nevada. Now they go play at Wyoming. Wyoming is a funky little team because they're 4-1 with wins against, if it could load, I don't know why it's not working, with wins against Texas Tech in double overtime. Portland State, they lost 31-10 at Texas. They beat Appalachian State, which one could say Appalachian State went into overtime with North Carolina, and then they beat New Mexico. These two teams are very solid teams. I just think the reason Wyoming isn't ranked is because they had Texas on their schedule and they lost. If Wyoming played some random school instead of Texas, they'd probably be ranked too. So I think Wyoming can take the W here. This is going to be a very interesting game. But a lot of people are saying like Fresno State could be the undefeated team. It could be the undefeated team for the Mountain West or whatever. I'm having a very hard time loading on my phone right now. I think I described this last video. Every time I try to pull up ESPN and look at stats while I'm making these, my phone gets really hot and it starts to fail. But the team that everybody should be looking at rather than Fresno State is Air Force. Air Force is walking over their opponents, absolutely annihilating them. Air Force beat San Diego State better than any Pac-12 team beat San Diego State. Air Force looked better against San Jose State than USC did. I mean, Air Force is just not being talked about. Their worst win, believe it or not, I'm saying that. Their worst win is against Sam Houston. They won 13-3. So this is Air Force is the team that people need to be talking about instead of Fresno State. I hope that Fresno State loses this. I'm not predicting that Wyoming wins this just because I want Fresno State to lose. I actually do think Wyoming can make this a good matchup and win. But I hope Fresno State loses and a couple other teams like Louisville loses. So Air Force can get ranked, get that worldwide recognition because they're for real, dude. They are very, very, very for real. They could very easily go undefeated with the lightness of schedule and the strength of the team. Watch out for them. Oregon State at Cal. I actually realized how many cool logos Cal has. They've got like the C, then they've got the bear and a claw, and then they've just got the different variations of the Cal logo. I had a fun choosing which logo I wanted to pick. I ended up choosing this one, but that is not going to be enough to get them the win against Oregon State. It's not even going to come close. Oregon State favored by only 9.5. I think that's kind of wild. Cal just struggled to put away a bad ASU team on their home turf. Cal should get destroyed in this game very easily. Arizona at USC. U of A played very well against Washington, but I feel like there's something we can take away from that game. Washington struggled at U of A. Guess who struggled at Colorado? USC. I think the home field right now in Pac-12 play and quite frankly in college football play in general is a major factor in some of these games leading to closer games. With that being said, U of A plays at USC. I have faith in U of A's ability to put up plenty of points. They put up 24 against Washington's very solid defense, which looks pretty damn good. I think their backup quarterback for U of A is actually better than the starter, and they can definitely put some points up against USC, but USC's offense is just probably one of the best. I could say strongly the best offense in the league. The only other offenses I could see being better would be Washington or Oregon's, two Pac-12 teams. Or I guess maybe Florida State not Florida State. Maybe Texas. Yeah, probably Texas. But yeah, this USC's offense is definitely like a top 5 offense right now. U of A is they're not the best team ever. Their defense is their weak spot, which is just not a good brewing ground against a good offense. So give me USC. And that's our last game for week 6 predictions. I hope you guys enjoyed this. 3,000 subs is just ridiculous. Thank you guys so much. With that being said, a like and subscribe helps. A comment always helps. And that's all for me. Adios.